there's a less of a tolerance in terms of being able to deal with these situations, being able to, you know, find the support that is needed as a community to all, you know, unite together over this particular issue. You know, yeah.
I think mental illness in America is a systemic problem to begin with.
Okay.
And I think in communities of color, it's so compounded by lack of awareness of what mental illness looks like, even dementia, as well as lack of support from the federal government, as well as local communities to be able to support the amount of services that's necessary for people to get treatment, real comprehensive quality treatment. So even in the case where someone could be mentally ill in communities of color, you tend to not often have trained professionals from, let's say, the police department who would intervene if a person is becoming agitated or violent or suspicious and feel threatened, and they're trying to just protect their own boundaries and their own personal space when law enforcement is then involved. So you'll have law enforcement who comes in if there's a call from, you know, a local neighbor, if someone's, let's say, exhibiting some odd behaviors. And if there's no history present or a history giver on that person's mental illness, then you often have a combative situation. So it's not where we're seeing a lot of the community supports in neighborhoods that people may suffer from mental illness at high incidences, so they're criminalized. They're often criminalized for extended periods of time with petty accounts of any kind of criminal behavior. And so you have an overabundant amount of people of color who are institutionalized because there's an underlying mental illness that's either undiagnosed or untreated. So even in the case of dementia or Alzheimer's, that this spans the gamut. And so I think that when we talk about mental illness and prevention, we have to talk about federal intervention. We have to talk about Obamacare and what that's going to mean for people to receive quality assistance.
And I also think that there is an inequity of, you know, mental health and medical services in, you know, poor communities, in all poor communities, and in communities of color. And I think that's part of, you know, that's a big problem for all of us. So I think that we have to work to change that. We have to make sure that money is spent on better programs and services. We have to make sure that we have better mental health centers. We have to make sure we have day programs for people you know, who are deeply forgetful, respite programs for family caregivers. I mean, I still believe that, you know, despite all the talk about no money, I believe that there is money for all of this. And that instead of impoverishing us, the family caregivers, we should use the money that we give to the federal, state, and local, you know, in taxes to the kinds of programs that we all need. Because that's what I see. I see people being impoverished. I see poor people being even more impoverished. And I see people in the middle classes being impoverished. And I think that's a tragedy. And I think that it's going to have untold, you know, effects on the future.
You have to have these conversations, and you have to demand that your doctor make time to have conversations with you when you go to the doctor's office. I mean, one of the things that I always work on some of my patients and their families is to write down before you go to the doctor's office the questions that you have, to help you not only not forget some things that are important to ask, but also to be able to have a way to sort of control the time that's limited in the doctor's office with what's really pertinent. So I have lots of patients who have multiple chronic medical illnesses. When you go to your doctor's office now, you don't have 20 minutes to talk about all of your problems and all the chronic illnesses that you have. Your doctor really wants to know, what are you there for today?
Right.
So if you come into your doctor's office and there's something that has affected you since your last visit, you really want to make a list of maybe the top 3 or 4 questions that you have or concerns. So you go in as your own advocate, saying, look, doc, this is what's happening with mom, or this is what's happening with me since the last time we were here. What can we do about it? Do you also have some resources? And one of the things that our organization is doing is trying to train people to become advocates in whatever social issues are important to them.
Absolutely.
Because we cannot depend on community-based groups anymore and organizations that have been cut back to do the kind of advocacy for you. So you now have to inform yourself, use the language that's out there, and be able to do some of the research to see what it is that you think is going on, so that you can say specifically, these are my symptoms, these are some of the things that are sort of bothering me these last few weeks that's different from the previous 2 weeks when I was last in touch with you, and then go into your doctor's office with that information. It helps to make you feel better about your role and your care, and it also helps to guide the doctor with what you're there for that time that you're going to see him or her.
You might erase, accomplish what you will, accomplish what you will.